Hello and welcome. I'm William.
And I'm Javayria.
And in this video we'll be sharing our experiences, our people who are not exactly cool by modern standards. But what people don't tell us either is that it is possible to find a loving marriage. It is possible to find ourselves in jobs we are quite happy with in comfortable conditions without looking like a model for Gucci, earning six figures, having an expensive car, being a lawyer, a GP or a banker, having done like Oxford or private school. It's possible. It's a bit more difficult, but it's infinitely more rewarding. We have been rejected from jobs or from relationships, marriage. It was me having Polish parents, me having a French passport, me not earning six figures, or me being too quiet. Even though I acknowledge that I benefit from some privileges, such as my skin color, my gender, or my education.
And kind of the same for me in terms of I have my privileges. So I have an education. I know as a South Asian, I benefit from things in society that people in the black community don't. And I know there's probably many other things that I benefit from as well in a lot of ways. My passport, being able to move around the world freely compared to the fact that others can't from other countries. There's many things, right? Where I work, what I earn, all of these things provide me privileges and benefits in society. But also there are things about me which are not considered normative, cool, acceptable, which have meant that in the realms of jobs or marriage, I haven't been acceptable and I haven't been valid. No matter how privileged you are, if you don't tick certain boxes, it plays against you. It plays against you. You're basically rejected. You can be rejected on those lines, right?
So our situation and our experience is an illustration among many others of how the system works against people who belong to certain norms, and whether it is beauty standards, financial standards, social economic standards, many other things. So one thing I've noticed in my experience is that whenever I found myself in an environment in which I felt the need for begging for validation or acceptance, it was always as a red flag for a very harmful environment, because it kind of forced me to change. In the book, The Class Ceiling, we already know that in the workplace, no matter how skilled you are, no matter your experience, your qualification, people usually get ahead if they vibe with colleagues and managers, which according to Friedman and Laurisson is called a cultural matching, which means that if you want to have experience this cultural matching, you better have done the same private schools, universities, born in the same region of England as the person who is hiring you or is about to give you a promotion. And worse, where it comes also with like similar hobbies, and of course gender, skin color, socioeconomic class, and beauty standards. All of this is at play. But if you're outside all these boxes, then there is something that I haven't really experienced, but it's more something you have practiced, which is code switching, meaning that you try to mimic the way of speaking, the attitudes, the behaviors of the dominant culture in order to just survive, and we're not attracting any negative attention. So how was it on your end?
Yeah, I didn't have to do it so much in my previous job because there was so many people from different places. I felt I didn't have to do it that much, but where I currently work, I think I've had to do it more. And actually, it's been more about, and I feel that there's a sense of shame I have about this, which is that at times I have to change how I speak to sound more middle class. And at times I have to be really conscious of how, if I'm using any slang or if I'm with the tone of my voice, or I don't know, it's like, I think that aspect of it I'm very conscious of, and I don't ever hide the fact that I'm Muslim. I tell people openly that I am, so that's not something I ever hide. Obviously I'm not visibly Muslim, so people don't know when they see me, but I do tell people, and I always tell people I'm Pakistani, and obviously I can't hide that. But I always feel like the thing I actively do is change how I speak, often. And I unfortunately have to do it to survive, and I wish I didn't. And I'm trying to do it less now. But and also just doing small things like wearing a kameez to work. Like what I'm trying to do at work is bring in my whole self, and like, you know, in the team that I work in, like encourage that we all celebrate everyone's different festivals and things like that. So what I'm trying to do at work now is create more of a kind of whole experience, but I've only been able to do that because I've gotten to a management level. So it depends on where you get. So if I came in very junior, I don't know if I could do these things. But now, because I have a level of decision-making power, I can start to do these things. And I think ultimately code switching, fine, it's a survival mechanism, but I don't think it's very good for your mental well-being. It creates a kind of dissonance. You have to live in fractured ways, and I don't think that's healthy for a human being who wants to feel like they have agency and feel whole.
If you were in a lesser position,
I couldn't.
It would have been very risky on your end.
Of course, and that's why when I started where I work, I couldn't do it. It's taken me almost 4 years to get to a point where I have my own team, where I can start to instigate these things. And I also have hired a very diverse team. And I hate the language of diversity, but what I mean is, like, I've hired a team which is from all over the place in the world, in the UK. And that was my, you know, I didn't intentionally obviously do that, but it's because I interviewed in a fair way. And because I'm not racist. So I obviously didn't hire people because of their background or skin colour. But if you interview people in a fair and reasonable way, the result is that you end up hiring people based on their abilities, and they're not. And your pool of candidates is not all the same, right?
This is something, I think, a more extreme form of it that I experienced from my own parents, who are Polish immigrants who moved to France in the 80s, where there was, and still, I guess maybe less now, but a strong anti-Polish sentiment back in the days. So I think the danger is when it comes to a point where this code switching becomes permanent or burnt into your mind, which Hussein Bulhan calls metacolonialism. And one illustration I have for this is, I'm thinking of my parents, who made me, I would say, one example of metacolonialism. My parents are Polish, but they chose for me and my sister English names. Also, they didn't teach us Polish at home. They would speak Polish between them, but they will make the extra effort to speak French to us, because they told us they were fearing that we would not blend in, and they were very scared that we would stand out as being not French. They regret now. And on your end, how were your parents? Like, did they try to adjust things?
No. My parents were like,
if not, why?
My parents were the total opposite. They gave us like very Muslim sounding names. They taught us Punjabi before anything. So when I got to nursery, I couldn't speak English. They were very clear about the fact that this is who you are first and foremost. And the reason they didn't do that to us is because they felt like who they were was important. And they also felt like us being Muslim was important, and having Muslim names, and having a knowledge. Also because after partition, we moved over to Pakistan, and we were no longer had our ancestral land and home in India. I think there was a sense of like, you really have to hold on to this kind of Punjabi, this particular dialect. and hold on to your faith and hold on to your names, and it means something. And my mum would wear shalwar kameez and we would wear shalwar kameez. My parents were like very much not interested in us blending. They didn't even care. They were just like, be you.
Which is incredible, because when I look at the overall state of the society now, and I'm reflecting on my own experiences, that despite my privileges when I was like looking for marriage or for jobs within the Muslim community here in the UK, I got rejected because some people found that, for example, me praying 5 times a day was too intense, or me having a beard was too much, while it's not like the big like sunnah length even. I kind of understand how people have integrated this kind of fear maybe, or want, not to this will of not wanting to make any waves, to the point that it is also people inflict these norms and standards to other Muslims, while we should, like the faith should be like a uniting factor. And how would you explain that some people, like your parents, didn't compromise on anything, and some other would completely erase the identity of their kids?
I think it came from they had like a healthy sense of self, and they were not like unhealthily proud of who they are, but they were proud of who they are, and they knew that they were dignified people. And I used to hear from my mum a lot that she was like, ultimately when you leave the house, Allah is the one protecting you, and that no one can hurt you. And I feel like my mum's absolute like unwavering faith was like one of the reasons where, in all honesty, like she wouldn't fear anything. Will, like, it is tawakkul, right? It's like literally like you leave the house, and she said, did she just be at the door? She's like, Allah this sort, Allah this sort. Like, it's like, I leave you to God. Like, so for her, why should she change herself? She has Allah. Like, it was a very simple notion. What's sad is like your parents did it out of a place of trying to do the right thing for you and out of fear, and that's deeply sad. I feel sad for them. I don't think they did it in like a bad way. They wanted they wanted the best for you. And sometimes people look back and they think, wow, I wish I hadn't. But at the time, I sympathise with that. It's not something I would do, but I understand it.
Yeah. One thing that scares me when it comes to the consequences of seeking validation is how much you can lose yourself in the expectations of others. But first of all, I have a question for you. Did you try to seek acceptance or validation from others at certain points in your life, like at uni or at work?
Of course. So you like dress in like trendy ways. I think that was kind of the only way I did it. Like, in all honesty, like I never really tried to change my personality much because I kind of am the way I am. I'm quite extroverted. And I also feel like, in society, extroverts get far. It's like the truth. I feel like quiet people don't. And I feel like I was always rewarded for being an extrovert. I was always able to make friends easily. And being like at college and uni, I kind of wanted to dress trendy like everyone else, to be fit in and feel cool. Other than that, not really. I was quite proud of being who I was. I was quite proud of being Pakistani, about being Muslim. But I think I got it from my parents. Like, I wasn't really interested in changing any of that. And when I started working, like in my first job, I worked at a charity, I honestly didn't code switch. I was just myself. I only really started having to do it in this job more.
Did you feel any consequences of you trying to blend in?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Like, sometimes I would dress how I actually don't think I wanted to dress, and I still think I do that to an extent. Like, I've often said to you that I try and dress in like dark colours and like tone things down, because I know I already stick out with brown skin, and I've experienced racism when I was younger. It's not something, I get really stressed out when I feel like people are looking at me. So I feel like I kind of do that now. And what the consequences of that, I don't think I'm allowing myself to be the whole version of myself. But what I'm really glad about, Will, is that my parents instilled a sense of like dignity and pride about being Muslim and Pakistani. And not in a nationalist, like ugly way, but in like, you're from the subcontinent, this is who you are and it means something. And you're Muslim and that means something. And I think I was lucky to go to SOAS and like study history, which was related to my the subcontinent. Yeah, I have always also been criticised for how I'm not like overly feminine, and I remember I used to try and dress more conventionally, normatively feminine that society deems feminine. And then I did that in my years when I was a teenager, and then I got to uni and I was like, I don't want to do this. I was like, I want to dress how I want to dress. I don't give a crap. I'm just gonna like wear t-shirts and jeans and Converses, and like if people want to call me a tomboy or whatever the hell they want to call me, then call me that. Because I was like, it doesn't feel good and I don't want to do this. It's not me. But I know, like at work, like I don't change how I speak now. I feel like with friends, and especially even with you in my marriage, I got to a point about 5 or 6 years ago where I was like, I have to speak the truth, and if I don't live in truth, I'm going to become unwell. Javayria Masood being Javayria Masood is me being able to speak honestly and truthfully, being able to talk about myself honestly and truthfully, being able to talk about myself being Muslim and Pakistani, and being able to like be open and honest with my views and my thoughts.
Your family acted, I would say, almost like an anchor for you, while if I try to reflect on my experience of seeking validation and acceptance, it happened not in France, but obviously when I came to the UK, being Muslim, and feeling that I was not a good Muslim enough because people rejected me for these various reasons, and doubting that that now, like, you know, if you want to be a good Muslim, what is the message? You know, that maybe I shouldn't pray that much, maybe I shouldn't like look Muslim, maybe I should like invest in like material things, because I was actually looking at who were the people they were hiring instead of me, or who were the people they were marrying instead of me. And it was always very extroverted, overconfident men with like laser trimmed beard, who do not really care about religion or spirituality, who go just to the gym, drive a white BMW or Mercedes. And so in my mind, I almost accepted the idea that maybe I should become like them, maybe I should look like them, maybe I should not care about Islam the way they don't care about Islam, and just invest on this appearance and these material markers. The problem is when you seek validation at any cost, then you're open to manipulation as well. Because I remember the times where I was so desperate to fit in that I was ready to do anything for people to accept me, and it creates very unhealthy dynamics. I've lost money, I've lost time, energy, £3,000 to someone I thought would marry me at some point. And it's just to the point where I eventually got tired of that and decided, no, maybe I should just be myself and focus on what's important. There is actually an important point that you mentioned about how people who are extroverted get ahead. But I would go even further and say that, again, I'm trying to remember the takeaways from this book, The Class Ceiling, that it's not only the fact of being extroverted, it's also having this overconfidence, which is almost a form of arrogance.
Yeah, you're right.
Because one thing is, while you are friendly because you're chatty, you are not arrogant, and you don't like enter a room and present yourself as you being the best, while this is actually how the society is geared to work. People believe that being overconfident and arrogant about your skills is someone who displays some qualities of leadership, someone who is successful. And we live in a world where creating the illusion of something matters more than actually doing something. We've seen this with cases like these documentaries on Netflix, like Tinder Swindler, and what was the other one?
Oh, the Finding Anna, was it?
Finding Anna. Because people actually in the workplace, they become real-life Instagram profiles. They only display they're nice face and they're happy to boast about things, but they cannot deliver at the end of the day, and this causes problem. Threading on that, there is this very important point that you mentioned, you now being in a management position, trying to, for example, wear kameez at work. But I want to tweak this idea and think, what if you started wearing kameez since day one?
Oh no.
Because wouldn't that be actually a filter? If you wear yourself, meaning that if the people don't accept you for like as you are, it means that it's maybe not the right environment and you need to find another one.
So if I was like not dependent on that job for a livelihood, I would experiment. But if I am, I can't. So when I was living at my parents' house and working, I could kind of freely be myself a bit more. But when our livelihood depends on my job and your livelihood depends on yours, I can't play like that.
There is the necessary like financial stability.
Yeah,
that is a prequel to like us being ourselves, unfortunately.
Yeah, I need to earn money. And that doesn't mean that I like entirely become like an English person. But what it means is that I have to blend with my clothing and how I talk. And I'm not advocating that people should do this, by the way. I'm saying I did what I had to do. But all the while, I always hold on to who I am. I'm Muslim, I'm Pakistani, I have my ethics, I know who I am. But I knew that if I start to like mess and play around with things, especially when we got married, like you were still looking for a job. If I had started playing around with things, Will, no, it's too risky. And there was that residual stress of like, well, what if I do something and it's taken the wrong way? So for me, it's taken me 4 years of being in an institution where now I know enough people, I have enough trust, I have more power where I can now do these things. And I feel confident to do that.
But then, you know, it's a tricky route, because I'm thinking you only had to change, be careful about your appearance and the way you speak. But if we think of Muslims who are, let's say, in law enforcement or working, let's say, for like the Home Office, Ministry of Defense,
they would have to hide their faith. They would have to even change their names.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are working in environments where there is, I would say, there is like this structural oppression of people who are at the margin. So we are ending up with Muslims who are, to have to do stop and search on people, or to have to cross these ethical lines. But if they don't do it, then they will be treated as outsiders, they are putting their jobs at risk as well. So how do you not cross the line if, for example, your livelihood depends on you being in the police or the Home Office, and you're pushed to cross these ethical lines? So how do you deal with it? How do you find the balance?
I don't think I know, because I haven't been in those situations. I feel like you'd either have to leave the job or figure out what's too far. What would be I don't really know what else you could do. I thankfully don't work I work at university, so I don't have to contend with those questions, and I don't think I would ever go into a job where I did have to. Because I think for me, I know what's too far, like that I wouldn't do. I
don't know if this is something you have experienced because you had to deal with recruitment, but it was commonplace a few years ago for lots of big companies to use IQ tests for recruiting people. I don't know exactly if it depends on the industry, but like I've heard like on many occasions. However, now what I found interesting is these same companies are introducing some other quotients. I mean, I don't believe that like turning everything into figures is the way to go, but they have started, for example, talking about EQ, emotional quotient, or SQ, social quotient, AQ, adversity quotient, which is respectively, can you spot people in difficulty and support them? Social quotient is not about how popular you are, but can you create long-term and sustainable relationships and friendships with people? Or adversity quotients, where if you fall, if you have some difficulties, how good are you at overcoming them and getting up again, which I think, I don't think these quotients are a solution per se, but it's interesting because it shows that companies realize that there are other things that matter than just like pure and raw brain power. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that those things are really interesting. I didn't know that existed. But the like when if you want to get into the civil service fast stream, you have to do numerical and other types of reasoning tests. Yeah, those I've come across, but these I haven't, no.
I also realized that when you enter a place where you feel you need to be accepted by others, the problem is the people we seek validation from are also in search for validation from like other people, from especially from above. It is a kind of a vicious circle where, at the end of the day, because everyone wants to prove themselves, there is this toxic projection of egos all over the place, and where people would compensate their insecurities or their lack or qualities of skills. They will overcompensate by inflicting violence on others, which is, at the end of the day, completely destroying the organization, as we've seen, for example, in the charity sector. Charities who have almost completely collapsed because the only people they hired were these very kind of people. You remember when I was wanting to work for these kind of charities?
Yeah.
And I would have ended in a place where the people just crush each other for feeling better. And it's only when I overcame my struggles that I decided that, no, I'm not wasting time, energy, and money anymore. And I want to focus on the things that are important to me, because at the end of the day, these are not the people who bring me food on the table. Or if it comes to, friendship, how can we tell the difference between someone who is just, very like superficial and flaky, and someone who's going to be a very, very solid friend?
Yeah.
Or even, when it comes to marriage, that's maybe like for another video, but like how were we able to find each other and recognize that, it's going to make a solid marriage? How do you make the difference?
Okay, so the first thing I feel like, and this is like really wishy-washy, right? But I think if the person gives you a bad feeling or a vibe and in your heart you feel it, I think your intuition is a really important thing that Allah's given us. Like, it's there for a reason. We feel a certain way around people for a reason. With friends, I think it's, how do you feel around the person? Is the person kind? Does the person actually say what they mean? And do they actually do the things they say they're gonna do? And how pleasant and easy and loving does the friendship feel? And how difficult does it feel? Because I've said this to you before, where things feel constantly tough, I'm not saying that if your marriage feels tough, you should just give up on it. Or if your friendship is tough, you should just give up on it. But if a person is being consistently mean, if a person is being consistently difficult, I think there's questions you need to ask yourself about that person. That's how I would phrase it.
Yeah, or if it's just very ambiguous.
And like, you're always the one giving, but the other person isn't. I think you have to ask yourself a set of deep questions. But I have this rule, don't I, Will, that if I want to make friends with someone, I reach out once, 2 times, 3 times. The third time, if nothing happens, I leave it. Because I'm done. I don't have the energy to keep going there and trying. Like, I can't. And even Will, like, when we were getting to know each other, had we tried once, twice, 3 times and it didn't work, I don't know, for some reason it wasn't aligning, I would have left it. Because I'm just too tired. I can't do this. But I think also, when you're thinking of a marital partner, if your ethics and your vision of life is similar, it's very clear. And it's easy and it feels good, right?
I don't know if it's me because I have a rational mind, but I need some probes, I would say, to figure out if someone's going to be solid or not. And I think even though now I'm able to feel things, I try not to trust my gut's feeling too much, even though, I know that there's a part that is spiritually like inspired by Allah for us to, connect with each other. But I like my solid probes, and I think maybe, I don't know, this is because this is how I've been working with people, doing field work and interviewing people. But if I can summarize what I found, there's always three things I look for in people. There is compassion, there is critical thinking, and commitment. I've been told that people, like English people, really like things that start with the same letter. So that's three C's, like compassion, critical thinking, and compassion. I didn't.
You said compassion twice. Compassion, critical thinking, and commitment.
Commitment, yeah. So I haven't made it up. It's just the words. They happen to start by C, because compassion means that someone will be, first of all, very patient and being able to understand that the other party also can make mistakes. That we are not perfect. We're vulnerable people. We are prone to mistakes, and so it's about understanding that the other person can experience struggles, and if they don't meet certain expectations, maybe there is a backstory. You know, there's this. I don't think it's a hadith. I think it's a tradition. You know, the 70 excuses. So I think it comes from like this trait of compassion. The second thing is critical thinking, because it's also, you know, the person should be able to reflect on themselves and think, you know, when something wrong happens, first of all, is it my fault it happens? You know, is it because something I've done? What is the reason? Try to, you know, investigate things, and not, for example, just like some people always blame the other, never them. I mean, I'm referring to my first marriage where, you know, it's she couldn't be wrong, but there's lots of people, as naive as it sounds, who can't believe that they can be wrong at some point. But yeah, we're not going to delve in psychology because there's a lot of reasons behind such a behavior. But yeah, critical thinking, and know that people can be mistaken and themselves can be mistaken. And the third thing is commitment, knowing that life is difficult, relationships are going to be difficult, friendships even can be difficult. However, is this person able to commit to making things work, or at least trying their best? Because it's very easy to give up, and this is something we see in the society of consumerism. You know, things don't work, and we always can go on the apps and find the next person. You know, it's just. But I believe that there is. It's a minimum to try to make things work, and you know, ask questions. A situation is difficult. Is it even possible to communicate? There's, you know, steps before giving up. So when, for example, I interview people, this is what I used to do for my field work, and occasionally I do it with friends. One of the very first questions I ask is, what is the most challenging thing you've experienced in your life? And for some reason, I mean, this is like in my book, Young Muslim Changemakers, like where I've noticed that the people who are the most committed to their cause, who are, you know, the kind of people who would, you know, not only set up a charity, but literally make it work, even if they're only person making it work. You know, even if it's like -10 in the winter, they're going to take a van and feed the homeless because this is the goal they have set. And the people who are always the most committed to things, who have the most beautiful hearts, are very often those who have been through the most difficult things in life. However, they have overcome them, because lots of people go through difficult things and it breaks them, and to a point where they cannot recover. And sometimes when things are not like processed, you know, it's just like a bone fracture. If you don't treat it well, it's gonna hurt even more in the future. And this is what gives to the saying, you know, hurt people. They don't know how to heal themselves, so they're gonna project their pains and frustrations on other people. Yeah.
But also people are not given the tools to know how to do that. And like Bell Hooks talks about like this idea of like, if we had schools to teach people how to love each other, maybe things would be better, right? Like, do we have places where people are taught how to heal themselves and each other? Like, I feel a lot of empathy for people who struggle who are just in a cycle of struggle.
Yeah. I try to be empathetic and understand, you know, whenever someone does something very harmful to us or our friends, what could be the underlying reasons, because there's always a backstory to that. It's very, very hard. But unfortunately, at some point, we need to set boundaries, because as much as we love these people, we cannot let them affect our well-being.
Of course.
We try, as you said, like once, twice, thrice. If it doesn't work, then there's...
Then you pray for them and you leave it to Allah, right?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. But talking about probes, there's other little things, I look into in someone, for example, is this person asking standard questions or like out of the ordinary? Or, would they bring up... I would say unconventional topics. Let's say for example, some of your cousins, they would like bring up things about, facts about nature, dinosaurs, and while some other friends would just talk about food, clothes,
cars.
Yeah, cars. And or simple things such as, do they pay attention to their surroundings, or are they? I mean, it doesn't have to be like, it's not questions which are like standalone questions. It's just taken as a whole. For example, can this person be a good listener when it comes to a conversation, or what are their like goals in life? Are they material goals, or are they much more deeper things? For example, when someone tells me that their goal in life is to be happy, it's just, for me, it's not a red flag, but it's just no, I'm sorry, I don't have much in common.
Yeah, I mean, my kind of words of conclusions are based around the idea that it's like we're all like roaming on this earth, like blindly, right? Like being blind to like Allah's blessings and like what this is actually about. And it's like we're all obsessed with like societal norms and feeling cool and being cool and like conforming and having the best stuff, when the biggest joke of all is none of it matters. And I just feel like it's deeply sad in a lot of ways that people would spend their whole lives dedicated to something that doesn't matter. That truly the only thing that really matters here is how you treat people, if you look after the earth and people, and if you love Allah and if you worship Allah and if you care about what Allah's taught. And it's like everything else is a complete distraction and it's completely not relevant. And I feel like actually I think it's just deeply sad. And I think that when I had that realization, and I'm not saying I'm a perfect Muslim who doesn't get sucked into the dunya, I do, we all do, right? But I think when I had that realization, I was able to step back and be like, oh, okay, none of this like rejection or like people being horrible to me about my skin color, like being racist, or people being, engaging in colorism and calling me too dark or calling me too fat, that I feel deeply sad for them. And like, I hope Allah forgives them, and I hope Allah forgives me for anything I've done, because none of this matters. And I feel like that kind of liberates you from caring to a degree. And I feel like actually, like, I've obviously had a lot of therapy, but that is another way I cope. I'm like, actually, of course we have to tie our camels and pay the bills and take care of people. I'm not saying nothing literally matters, but I'm saying that at its essence and at its core, this is futile. And I feel like when I then step back and think of that, I'm just like, whoa, okay. All right, I'm going to be with Allah at some point, and inshallah, I can be with Him, and I can be in the akhirah in some peace. I really hope. I hope. And I don't have to carry all this with me. That's it. Like, that's ultimately what gives me the calm. I think that you're setting out compassion, critical thinking and commitment as a way to discern if you want to be close to a person, I think is a really important and concise and interesting way to express that. And I think it's something I'll use, actually, because I never thought of it in such a way. And in terms of all the points that you've made so far while we've been discussing, it just makes me think about how actually traumatized people are and how deep inside maybe their 5-year-old child self just really wants to fit in and be validated, and it's just deeply sad.
you don't necessarily have to blend in or erase people, like your children's identity or whatever, because you're a proof. You can be called like Javayria and make it to a very good job. But however, like, one needs to be strategic. As you mentioned, like you can experiment only if you are in certain conditions, and which I think it's a valid point, and there is no clear boundaries. It's a very gray area, because we can be in like jobs which are more flexible than others, in like with work colleagues that are more accepting than others, and it's like case by case, and also being careful of not crossing some ethical lines, and that's also needs to be examined when one takes up a job. But at the end of the day, I think you're completely right, because about people living for these things that don't really matter, because of course on a spiritual level they don't matter, but even if we talk from a like human perspective, at the end of the day, it's the bonds we create with people, and if it's based on superficial aesthetic things, people are not only fooling others, but they are fooling themselves, and end up leading lives which are completely empty. And we hear so many stories on people, they kind of wake up when they reach 40 and realize that no, this is not the life I wanted, this is not me. Like, they look at themselves in the mirror and who have I become? Literally, this is not like a movie, this is like real life stories. So I think, alhamdulillah, that I think we've been through things that broke us to an extent that we were able to, I would say, break this mirror of illusions, and realize that what really matters. So we didn't like waste time, money, or energy, too much of it on these things, and be able to steer our lives towards the best direction possible. I mean, still a work in progress. We
Absolutely,
still have work to do,
and look, I live on this dunya, and things get to me. I mean, things get to us both. It's not like we're immune from it. It just means that at least we have the critical skills to like step back and be like, oh no, that's starting to get to me. Step back. What is life actually about? Like, I think I'm just grateful that I can do that, because sometimes for weeks certain things will get to me, and then I have to stop myself and step back. And I think alhamdulillah just for the tools. And insan is forgetful, right? And it's like I just have to keep telling myself these things, and keep working on myself, and keep trying to get better and heal, and keep remembering Allah.
Yeah, I think also surrounding ourselves with the right kind of people is important, because I'm thinking if people don't experience necessarily like hardship, like how can they get these tools to navigate life? And in your case, it was much to do with your parents, who, for example, they kind of showed you that it is possible to be like Pakistani Muslim
and
living in the UK, and not compromise on their identity.
And they never have, and you'll see them to this day. Have they compromised?
No.
They're exactly as they were when they came. But of course they have worked, and they learn English, and they earn money, and they raise their family, and they're still themselves. And I think it's beautiful.
I think these kind of people are powerful reminders, and I mean, we as humans are by definition, insan, we forget, and it's important to be then reminders to each other, and I think this is a beautiful way of ending this conversation. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. Thank you very much for your attention. And then also do not subscribe, because this is not a channel about being accepted or validated. There's many other things in life.
Please don't subscribe.
So take care of each other, and till then, till next time.